Well, welcome today, guys. We're so excited to have you.
Oh, we're super excited to be here.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit first about your background.
Okay, Steph, you go first.
Okay. Well, we grew up in a very non-traditional household. Our dad was actually a youth evangelist, and I was out on the road 15 to 20 days a month. As a little girl. And then, it's so interesting. He transitioned into the business setting and we just kept, taking notes. And my dad's always been very much into personal development. And, he even hosted lots of different seminars like goals, dreams, attitude, and success seminars.
Wow.
So we were even setting goals and writing goals like as little kids. Ben, not so much.
I didn't buy in until I was like 18.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
But you're like a kindergarten being like, my goal is I'm going to learn the rainbow and how to spell it.
100%.
Pretty much. I mean, my
100%.
mom said I came out a lady boss.
Oh my God, I love that. That's so cute.
So yeah, from there, my dad actually early on in the game, wanting to have those multiple streams of income, he started buying into real estate. And really, we watched him build out an empire. And that was really, really cool to know that, the average millionaire has 7 streams of income. And so he taught us that from day one. So I love that.
So that helped influence your career immediately. So when you jump started, you were ready to build your mini empires?
Yeah, I think it was one of those things that he started investing in real estate in 2006, right before the market crash. And so I think his first investment property hardly made any money. And so, but he actually brings that up. We do a once a month kind of get together and teach people about investing in real estate. And he talks about, hey, even this terrible investment, look how much money I made on it in the long run, basically. And so it was really interesting seeing him start investing there. And then once the '08 crash happened, he pulled all his money out of the stock market and he's like, I'm going to start buying homes. And people called him an idiot at the time. And now he looks like a freaking genius.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He was buying townhomes for 40, 50, 60, 70 grand back in the day. And all those townhomes are 250, 300 grand now.
Yeah, because a lot of people were pulling out of the stock market, but then hiding it under their bed because they were nervous, not investing it into trying to help their legacy.
Totally.
Right?
And so it was kind of interesting just seeing that. So I think it definitely shaped me a little bit. Because for me, I went to college. I was planning on playing pro basketball after college. And
what position did you play?
I played the 4 or the 5. I played D3. And here's the thing. When I say pro basketball, it was pro basketball in Costa Rica. They were going to pay me $400 a game. It wasn't going to be anything crazy. But a week before I was supposed to move down, the team said, hey, we lost one of our sponsors. We no longer can pay you. So you can come down and play, but you're going to have to play for free. And I was like, I just played 4 years of college basketball for free. I'm not trying to do that. Right. But I had no backup plan. And I kind of was like, hey, I just found a crash landing job cold calling for a law firm, which was tough. But I went back to, hey, what is dad doing? Oh, he's investing in real estate. So my entire business model when I got into real estate was, hey, I'm going to get my license, and if I'm struggling, I'll call up dad and be like, hey, buy another investment property, which is a terrible business. Absolutely awful.
Oh
my dad is very much of a no handouts guy. Last year, he bought 3 properties, 2 through a different agent, 1 through me.
No, he did not.
Absolutely.
That's my dad. He's
Unacceptable.
100% German, very bottom line guy.
Oh, yeah. And he's like, the other agent brought me the deal. Why would I pay you? I'm like, all right, that's fair. All right.
Solid.
Yeah, whatever.
I am your son, but yeah.
And I'm your future grandchildren. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So I think that shaped me a lot, was seeing him grow up, or when I was growing up, seeing him invest in real estate. And so there were those principles, but then once I got into real estate, I found out, oh, I'm good at this. And, but definitely seeing that definitely helped me.
Well, and what's kind of funny is when Ben and I were growing up, we had polar opposite personalities. I was like, drive, get her done. And he was playing GameCube in the basement.
NFL Street 2 was my game.
Yeah, there you go. And the thing is watching him grow up in the exact same environment, having a completely opposite personality. But he came to one of our things that we do together as a family is on around the Christmas time frame. We all go out for breakfast and we all write our goals down. And Ben would never write his goals down. But there was one Christmas that he came with all of his goals. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this kid, what's happening?
Yeah.
Do you guys still do that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
God, I love that.
Absolutely. So it's been really fun watching him just really take a hold of real estate and just slay it on another level, and then be able to pay that forward to other people because he's so good with the numbers. The Excel spreadsheets doesn't make sense. Like, let's break it down. And so watching him do that, I started investing in like '08, and then him just jumping on the bandwagon and then just skyrocketing has been really fun to watch.
Do you feel like your previous experience with the attorney and cold calling helped? Because cold calling, right?
Yes.
We're all salespeople here,
100%.
right? And cold calling is the least favorite thing that we love to do.
Yep.
And but sometimes you have to do it, right? And so especially I feel like as an agent, you know, I mean, I can look up the Edina Realty directory down the road and start cold calling, you know,
Totally.
so my point is that did that help shape you into your career, or because I feel like that could also hinder some people being in sales.
Totally. No, 100% it helped me out. Like, I got used to rejection, and I also got used to coming up with an answer on the fly.
Right.
Because like for me, like the law firm that it dealt in class action lawsuits, it was actually not a bad phone call. Most of the time I called up blue collar businesses, said, hey, you're part of a class action lawsuit. You can file the paperwork, but we can do it, and we'll take all that off your plate, but we'll take 25% of whatever you get back.
Yeah.
And a lot of blue collar workers are like, I have no time for, you know.
I don't have time for that.
I don't have time for that. Yeah, I'll get 75% of what I wasn't planning on getting in the first place. But tons of people called me a scam artist. Tons of people hung up on me. So I got used to the rejection piece. Yeah. But then sometimes somebody asks you a question and it's like, I have to have an answer like that. Otherwise, they're hanging up on me. And so I think that helped me a lot, because then walking through homes, not to say I don't make up answers, because that's one thing you don't want to do.
Do not.
But to kind of think on your feet, and like if they ask you something that you don't know 100%, hey, to kind of connect the dots and be like, oh no, this is actually how it works, and everything like that. So no, I'm a firm believer that cold calling can help you in your real estate business. I think it's kind of a necessary evil in this business. Not to say you can't do well without cold calling. And I'm at a point in my business, I'm 98% referrals. I do no cold calling. If somebody calls on a listing of mine, I give it to a team member. I'm not, in that part of my business, but I do think.
But you had to start somewhere, right?
Totally,
And
totally.
Every new agent, right? Like,
yes.
Where do you start?
Exactly.
Where do you begin?
As a brand new agent, I think it's very valuable to cold call. Get used to rejection. Get used to people yelling at you, to develop that thick skin, because that's only going to help you in this business, quite honestly.
Speaking of business, tell us about how Mission Real Estate Group originated,
Yeah.
how long it's been around, and how it's growing.
Totally. So Mission Real Estate Group kind of started, so flashback to my college basketball days. I went on a missions trip to Costa Rica my freshman year. It totally changed my life.
Yeah.
Because basically what this team did, we found missionaries in various countries that are just struggling getting a foot in the door, basically. And so what we do as an American basketball team, we partner up with a missionary, and then that missionary goes into the community, high schools, colleges, wherever, and says, hey, we've got an American basketball team that wants to play you. And so this first trip in Costa Rica, we never got turned down. Like a high school basketball team was like, an American basketball team wants to play us? Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, how fun.
Yeah. Oh, it was great. And then, as we're warming up, I would kind of international ball is a little bit different, and I would liken the high school in Costa Rica to like middle school here. So skills aren't quite as high and everything like that. And so we're all, D3, D2, a couple D1 guys playing on this team. And so we're dunking the basketball. And as soon as we dunk the basketball, they're like, whatever you have to say, I want to listen.
Oh.
So it really opens the door. And so then we'll pair up with missionaries. There's some schools you can talk about God, some you can't. But it's really cool because it gets that missionary a foot in the door to develop a relationship with that school afterwards. And so after that first trip, I was like, absolutely, I want to do this in my future. And so I kind of felt like God told me on that trip, hey, you're going to build a business that'll help fund this in the future. And so sure enough, get into real estate, 5 years later. I wasn't planning on getting into real estate. And then, after 2 years of being on a different team, went out on my own. And I was like, okay, now I want to start building what God told me to. And so that's when the idea of Mission Real Estate Group came around. And so 20% of our profits go to missions organizations right now. But the long-term goal with Mission Real Estate Group is to build a team big enough so that I can kind of take a back seat and take basketball teams around the world. My wife played college volleyball. She wants to take volleyball teams around the world and everything like that, and just do that exact thing. Find struggling missionaries that are just having a hard time getting a foot in the door and help them get a foot in the door, basically. And so that's kind of where the passion started for Mission Real Estate Group.
That is awesome. And now are the missionaries, I want to just, are they all in just Costa Rica, or they're all
all over? And that's one thing that I love. Like right now, I support missionaries all over the place. Because again, 20% of our profits have to go to various missions. Some are local, but a lot of them are international. So like I support a YWAM base in Canada that constantly brings teams to the Philippines. And it was actually a guy I played college basketball with. And he's like, Ben, if you bring me a team, I guarantee you're going to have 5,000 people at every game, because like Philippines, in the Philippines, basketball is God. Like they absolutely love it. And so he's like, every little village has a basketball court in the middle of it. And so you come bring an American basketball team with guys over 6 feet, where the average like height in country is 5'2".
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. You're going to be a spectacle. And so, and you know, I would say COVID kind of put like some of our plans on back burner.
I was going to ask that next. Like with the pandemic, how did that change in obviously your mission's still the same.
Totally.
Right? But how did that change into your business of being able to, I mean, the market was crazy.
The market was crazy, and it was awesome because I could support those missionaries elsewhere during that time frame. But now I'm kind of getting to a point in my business where it's like, okay, I want that 20% to help fund bringing these sports teams elsewhere. Like I'm going to continue giving to these missionaries and everything like that. Like I'm not going to back that down. But it definitely, because me and my wife, we met in 2020. And so we were like, all right, let's go. Let's start doing this. And then all of a sudden it's like, you can't go anywhere. You can't go across the street.
Yes. You can't even see your neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's kind of thrown a wrench into a little bit, but I'm already seeing there's being a little bit of a shift in the market, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I do kind of feel like, oh, okay, this is kind of God's way of telling me, hey, maybe this is where you start shifting and, you know, doing kind of more that full-time sports missions. I'm always going to sell houses because I love people. I love real estate, everything like that. But I mean, my best year, I did 60 deals. I don't have to do 60 deals every year. That's not something. And that's just me, not my team or anything like that. And so now I'm kind of getting to a point where it's like, okay, I want to do my, 20, 30 deals. I'm cool with that. And then everything else I'm going to outsource to my team, so that I can kind of continue going after the mission that God placed on my heart, and that would be 2011. So,
wow, that's a beautiful story. So thanks for sharing. And thanks, I think that's
incredible.
awesome.
I just learned so much right there.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Totally.
And you both have unique, I don't want to say adventures isn't the right word, but like unique.
Journeys?
Yeah, well, like unique, because like you wrote a book.
Yes.
And like Lady Boss, and like your Instagram I've been following, and I actually love, I feel like was it your husband the other day you threw in the pool?
I'm not married, actually.
Oh, okay.
Let's make that known. She's on the market. No, I'm kidding.
Absolutely.
She pushed someone in the pool.
Absolutely. I'm single
The
and ready to
comments will
mingle.
start flowing in
If
now.
any successful
The
real
comments.
estate agents are looking, no, just
Oh my God, I love
We're
this.
shifting gears now, guys.
Okay.
Sorry.
But I would love to talk about how Lady Boss originated. I know your mom said you were born that way.
Yes.
But like your whole business and the book that you wrote, how did that all
Absolutely.
happen and how long ago?
So I actually started a business out of high school, transitioning over to college. I knew I didn't want to work for the man. I didn't want to trade hours for dollars. I always joked, like, I don't want to join the 40-60-40 club, where you work for 40 years, 60 hours a week, then you retire on 40% of the income that most can't even live on in the first place, right? I wanted freedom. I wanted options. And so when I just decided, okay, I'm just going to start this from ground zero, I'm going to partner up with an Inc. 500 company based out of Idaho Falls, Idaho. Let's get after it. And the chips were kind of stacked against me, I guess you could say, because how credible is an 18-year-old blonde girl that like has it going on, right? Like I didn't have any business experience underneath my belt. People didn't take me serious. I remember sitting at the Starbucks at the Galleria, and a guy looked at me, and we sat down for coffee because we were going to talk about, potentially partnering up, and he said, shut down all your stuff. And I was kind of like, okay. And he said, why don't you go and get a real job and make something of your life? You know, like, why don't you finish college? And he was just going off on a tangent. And I, like, literally being a young single female and just not being super secure in what you're running after, it like threw me for a loop. And I remember my mom was always so encouraging. We call her Mama P.
Yeah.
And we always joked, like, we go around this therapy pond. We walk around one time and she makes the world so much better. So we walked around one time, the world was not feeling much better. Oh. So the second time around, she literally flipped a switch. It was probably one of the best things she could have done. But she said, Steph, you can stand the heat or you can get out of the kitchen. Mm-hmm. Business is not for everyone. Obviously, it's not for you. And if anyone knows who I am, they know that I don't take shit. And I'm basically like, I am going to show all these people who is boss. And so through that, partnering up with that company, I became the youngest female senior director, executive director, broke a lot of records. And it was all because I just decided it wasn't all about the goal. It was all about helping other people. When I shifted my mindset to, you know what, I'm here to like change the game for so many people. There's a lot of women like me that are trying to make something happen, but they're going nowhere super fast. I want to be that trailblazer to help them bridge the gap between where they are and where they ultimately want to go and give them those tools and resources. So it was really me just saying, you know what, I'm going to give it everything I got. It's not a matter of if I'm going to be successful, it's just when. And it's crazy how many people joined that movement. And so many women, like when I would host events and I would host masterminds, they're like, well, give us more, like start a podcast, write a book.
Yeah.
Like we're doing, I was doing all these coaching sessions, these, you know, different things that were so helpful to women. It was just really fun how it just caught fire. And from there, like I wrote a book and I've done a lot of speaking and coaching throughout the United States. And I love breathing life and belief into women. Mm-hmm. That's a huge passion of mine.
Was it very therapeutic?
Oh, like doing the different events or
like, well, writing the book, like, was that very like therapeutic for you?
Absolutely. It was very cathartic because even just going through the different scenarios and going through, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. But because I felt like there was that rock bottom moment, it literally propelled me way beyond what I ever could have done if that wouldn't have happened. So I think it really gave me a lot of perspective and am able to like pull a ton of those principles out for women saying, girl, you got this. You know, even with a lot of women being in maybe even toxic relationships and maybe their husband or their significant other is really screwing them up mentally, how to get them to that other side, because that's a huge part of my story. And I really want to help women just take them by the arm and say, girl, you've got everything that it takes. Yeah. Let's not you Love go this. Do it. Let's go do it together as a team and a tribe. So
yeah. Did you send the book to the gentleman that you met in the gallery?
Because
I feel like we should.
Yeah. Or did you cross him off your list and
yes,
be like,
yes. Sorry, you're dead to me.
Yeah, I mean, what a piece of work.
Right.
That. Wow.
Yeah. No, I think one of the biggest things, especially dialing into real estate, it's been so rewarding helping. I mean, I help lots of different people, but specifically single women, helping them jump into the investing game, I think is just like a complete game changer and catalyst, because so many of them are like, oh, I'm gonna start investing when I get married, or I'm gonna start investing when my husband decides to take the lead. No, you take the lead, because if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, I'm going to cheer you on all the way. But I think it's important for us as women to have the skills. So if something does go haywire, you've got something to fall back on and you don't feel trapped. I think that's so important just for the self-confidence of just women at large.
Absolutely. I know that there's so many people I've crossed paths with that literally are in that they're trapped.
Yeah.
And it's like they need somebody to reach them when they're young.
Exactly.
You should do like little teen events at high schools or something.
Totally.
You know what 100%. I mean? Motivational.
Yep.
I don't know. I have all these visions.
Well, we've done different like vision board get-togethers. One thing that's really cool, there's actually a gal, she's now 21. It's Bella. I probably shouldn't say the name. Anyway,
we can edit it out.
Okay, cool. Well, there's a gal that I've been, taking her underneath my wing for a number of years, and she just recently got married. She's 21, and she called me up recently, and she's like, Steph, I don't know if you remember this, but I attended one of your vision board get-togethers, and that was the catalyst, because I grew up in a very small town and everyone thinks super small. Nobody would even think of buying their own home for a long time, let alone start, investing in real estate. And I have big goals and big dreams, and there's nobody that's like me. And I felt like that gave me permission to really dream bigger. And now she's wanting to invest and start buying investment properties. And I'm like, girl, I got you, game on. So I just think that's so cool when you just invest in the mindset of women early on in the game, like the sky is the limit.
I have like goosebumps.
Oh, I know. I could almost cry. Like it's because it's very emotional, right? Like,
But what Steph is really, really good at is motivation, and then like team building. Like that's something that's absolutely incredible.
I love it. I love to be able to help people see a bigger, better, badass version of themselves when they never could before, because then they start becoming that person. And it's just such a beautiful gift. I know that early on in the game, one of my really good friends and business mentors, he literally didn't make $1 off of me. And I offered to pay him, and because he was actually very successful in the first business that I partnered up with. And I said, Jason, you're amazing. I'd love to learn from you. I'd love to, pay for you to mentor me. He's like, oh, babe, you don't need to, pay for me to mentor you. Like, I see so much potential in you. And I never forgot that. There were so many times where I'd call him and I'm like, Jason, like, I just feel like I'm falling apart. I don't feel like I'm going to be able to move forward. Oh, girl, just don't even think about the crazy that happened today. This is where you're going. This is who you are. And that was just, he passed away in 2020. And I just feel like that's his legacy that I want to continually pay forward to just people at large, helping them just step up their game into that God-given potential, because we only got one shot at this. Let's not live a good life. Like, let's kick ass and let's live a great life.
Yeah. Amen to that.
I'm like, let's go start lead generating now.
I know. I want to fly.
Yeah, let's go.
Oh my gosh. So tell us a little bit about, obviously you guys get along so well. Like, what? It's just sibling.
Super well.
We used to fight like cats and dogs. Can I just tell you, I punctured his eardrum.
No, you did not.
With a Q-tip.
No.
On accident, though. You were helping him clean his ears?
Well, I was playing like doctor, and I was like, hey, it went differently in my head.
Yep. And then she also put a triangular hole in my head.
We were playing don't touch the ground, and he wasn't moving fast enough. It's just straightforward, right?
She was the lady boss and like, hey, get moving.
It's time to go.
Push it and then push me into a coffee table, and so I had to go to the ER.
So onward and upward, we've made amends. When I studied abroad
a few years later.
We studied abroad, or I studied abroad in Costa Rica, and I realized like how important relationships are in my life. And Ben has always looked up to me. Now he doesn't. He's 6'5", over 200 pounds. But
she said when I was a little kid, you will never be bigger than me. And if you guys
and
can't
I'm
tell,
5'5", and he's 6'5".
Yeah, 5'5" on a good day.
Yeah. Okay.
You got your heels always.
Yes. So now I'm so grateful. Now we've partnered up in business, in real estate. We're actually a part of a brokerage where we're building an international team. And so it's so
awesome.
So amazing. Like he's incredible with transactions. He's incredible with getting in the weeds and the nitty gritty and contracts. And he's an incredible mentor. And I am really good as far as my skill set of like leading leaders and building the vision and more of like the higher level stuff. So that's a great thing of us working together. We do lots of different masterminds together. We do Invest Like a Boss once a month. And what's cool about the Invest Like a Boss event that we do on a monthly basis, it's free. It's not only available to our team, but it's available to anyone that wants to jump on anywhere throughout the United States and beyond and really help them get the basics 101 on investing and give them the tools and the resources to kill it and literally connect the dots so that they can just pull the trigger and start investing themselves.
Yeah, because we realized we're posting on Instagram like, oh, just bought another rental property, and stuff like that. And there's so many people who are like, oh, that sounds amazing. I don't even know where to start. Like, it's so overwhelming.
Right.
Like, you go on YouTube and you type in real estate investing. It's like you're going to get tons and tons and tons of information. And so that's one thing that we kind of saw. We were like, oh, hey, like, we just want to break it down. Like, hey, what is step 1 in the process?
Right.
Okay, what is step 2 in the process? What do you look for? And all that kind of stuff. And so that was the main driving factor behind Invest Like a Boss. And so literally we just want to like give away free information. Hey, if you use this as real estate agents, great. If not, we've got a international team that we can hook you up with a good real estate agent, because I'm a firm believer you should buy investment real estate from an agent who invests themselves.
Preach.
Absolutely.
Because it's like we were talking about Teslas. I own a Tesla. I'm a Tesla fanboy till the day I die. But why would I go to a Tesla dealership and then buy from somebody who, I drive a Ford Focus?
Right.
Like, you don't believe in your own product. Okay, if you're a real estate agent, now I understand as a brand new real estate agent, you might not buy a property yet, but get started as soon as possible.
Yes.
Because if you don't believe in your own product, if you're buying investment real estate from some guy who's renting, how do you believe what he's saying? Because he doesn't believe in his own product. So that was the big thing for us, is like, hey, we just want to get some super easy, like, here's step 1, step 2, step 3, and then, all right, let's go out and do it. Let's go out and make it happen, because it's so easy to, I just need to do a little more analysis. I just need to do a little more research. I just need to, you get the paralysis.
It's scary to like pull the trigger.
Totally.
Right? 'Cause, like,
It's very foreign to people if they've never done it. I mean, they like the concept, but like where to start, like
Absolutely.
you said.
Well, and like, for example, I'm in the industry, and for our first investment property, I was just like, oh, honey, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Totally.
Like, that's an
Yeah.
extra mortgage payment. I don't know. Like,
Right.
I know. And then it's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
The first one is the worst one.
The first one is every single one after the first one gets easier and easier and easier and easier. It's just the first one. At the end of the day, do the first one. My dad like always says his very first one, he bought a 400 square foot cabin that cash flowed like $100 a month. And newsflash, if you're cash flowing $100 a month, you're not making money. Because you've got a ton of other expenses outside of that. And so he was like, the best thing I ever did was buy that and learn all the things you shouldn't do, so that I could go and buy my next one. Oh, that cash flowed a little more. Bought the next one. Oh, that cash flowed a little more,
Right.
And everything like that. So
I love that you guys give back. Like, you aren't willing, like, you give back to the community, you give back to your peers, you give back, like, a lot of, sorry, listeners, but a lot of people don't want to share their tips and tricks. They don't want to give away their trade secret or whatnot.
Yes.
And I think it's an awesome thing that both of you guys do, because not only you give back, but it's everyone can be fair, play fair in the sandbox, right?
Absolutely.
And you once a month, even just sharing with, just the Invest Like a Boss class.
And it's incredible too, because like you two, the way you did it, I understood it and like it clicked and it was simple.
Yeah.
And I've referred people to it and I've attended more than once, and like you hear different questions, it's interactive.
Yep.
Someone can go back and watch it if they weren't paying attention for a little piece of it or whatever. And you just willingly give this information. But I feel like when you do openly give like that, things come back to you naturally.
Back
And
and
that's the
good.
circle of
Yeah.
life. Like
It's-
that.
Yeah, like my parents taught Financial Peace University, big Dave Ramsey fans, which there's pros and cons to Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into that. But
That's podcast number 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Go team.
But his whole living open-handed principle, because if you're clenched fist, like, hey, I'm not going to give anything out. Well, if there's blessings coming from above, you can't receive that because you're living with a clenched fist. Living open-handed, I'm going to give out, but then blessings are going to come down. So here's a crazy statistics, since you guys are all in the real estate industry.
Yeah.
Only 2% of real estate agents give back in some way, shape, or form.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so like when I heard that, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're in such a selfish industry.
Right. Like me, what do I get? Well, yeah.
And that's, I think, why a lot of people stall out. Like, it's crazy, the stats of how many people actually have their license to how many people actually do a deal. Like, even Tom Ferry, I'm like, is that stat right? That doesn't seem right. But I think it truly is. Those people that are just like, hey, I'm just going to give back. I'm just going to leave people better than how I found them. what goes around comes around. Like it's sowing and reaping. It's a principle. Like even on, I do 95% word of mouth referral, and a lot of it is on social media. And so like even one gal, she reached out to me and she's like, I'm so nervous about investing. You know, I really don't even know where to start. Da 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 da. And I said, hey, jump on the Invest Like a Boss. We'll just give you the basic 101. She's like, well, how much does it cost? I said, it's free. You know, and if it works for you, great. But I will literally guide you through step by step. And now, literally fast forward about 45 days from that point, she's now bought her own investment property, an Airbnb.
Go
and
girl.
It was actually an Airbnb before. And so literally the day that we closed, I helped her to get that renter in there the day after to transition over from the other guy that was doing the Airbnb. So it's so cool that I just had no expectations, but hey, hear the information, and it's really cool how, and now she's paying that forward. She's like, she's referred different people on to me, and it's just really cool how that community, it just really just explodes.
Well, just a quick story, so I learned real early in my career that agents are super cheap, like super cheap. If you're a real estate agent listening to this, please don't be cheap. So like I think it was a $600,000 deal that it came down to a washer. Like it literally came down to, in the inspection, my buyers were like, hey, we want a new washer. Sellers were like, we're not going to do a new washer, you know, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so stupid. Yeah. Like it's a $600,000 deal. So I went to the other agent and I was like, hey, this is where we're at. Why don't we just split the cost of the washer? You know, a decent washer, $1,000, $500 a piece, you know. The agent was like, nope, that's not my responsibility. I don't think that's my deal. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to eat it. I'm going to buy my clients a brand new washer. I've gotten tons and tons and tons of referrals from them because at that point I look like Superman. Like, hey, that's the sellers aren't going to do anything. Guys, I really want you love this house. Like, I don't think it's worth walking away. Hey, I'm going to pay for a new washer for you.
Right.
And so one of the great, a really good book, I'm trying to remember. It's about Disney. It's like Everything's Magic or something like that. I'm trying to remember the exact name of it. But basically, everybody who walks into Disney, they've trained all their cast members to have a take 5 moment where it's like you blow somebody's mind for 5 minutes. And so I'm like, in every transaction, I try and have a take 5 moment where my client is like, wow, like he really did that? Mm-hmm. Like, that's amazing. Yeah. And so that was one of the greatest things I pulled from that book.
Ben, I've been in the investing game since 2008, but I decided to dial into transactions a couple years ago, and my sweet spot is the Airbnb. But I will tell you, I've learned so much from Ben on sometimes when I'm like, this happened and that happened, and just getting like, I can get real hot real quick.
Emotional real quick.
Yeah. So we're working on that, right? But nonetheless, like he's like, Steph, your word for the year is long game. You have to play the long game. If you can play the long game, life will be so much easier for you. And that's been one of my things that I tell my team all the time now. Like, guys, play the long game. Don't get into the weeds on this, like this tick for tack. Like, don't do that. And I will tell you, that makes all the difference in the world in business and life.
Yeah. May I ask a question? When do you feel like, so we've interviewed a lot of people on investing and a lot of their opinions, and a lot of people have various different opinions, right? Totally. So when do you feel like you start making a profit like that? Because I've heard some people say like 15 to 20 years. I've heard different things of units. I've heard you could do midterm rentals right now. Like, so what's your opinion?
Totally. Well, and I think our answers will probably differ on this. Depends. Yeah, totally. Because I've made a ton of mistakes in investing. Like, my parents and sister made money hand over fist in Airbnb. So I'm like, I'm going to buy an Airbnb. I'm going to buy in Minneapolis, March 23rd of 2020.
Oh, yeah.
The absolute worst time.
That was like that day.
Because we went to shelter in place. I think it was March 27th, 3 days later. And so I had it on Airbnb. It was booked out. I was like, sweet, this is amazing. Well, once we went to shelter in place, everybody canceled. Everybody canceled. And I was like, you know what? Hey, this is going to blow up. 2 weeks to flatten the curve, whatever. And I'm like, hey, this is going to blow over.
Yeah.
And a couple months go by, I start getting some bookings again. And I'm like, oh, hey, I'll probably break even even this first year, but that's not terrible considering the circumstances. Well, then George Floyd happened and all the riots in Minneapolis. And so it was very much of a like kind of wedding destination. Hey, we're going to stay over the weekend, all that kind of stuff. Well, then everybody became all of a sudden scared of Minneapolis. And so everything I had booked, cancel. And I was like, man, this sucks. So I owned it for 6 months and sold it because it was just like the market was still good at that time. So I sold it for a little bit more than what I bought it for. I ended up, not making much money. So for me, I love long-term rentals and I love multifamily. Now, I had a little bit of a niche. Most of my properties, duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes. I had a really great niche in Minneapolis. Then once George Floyd happened, I saw my demographic of tenant switch. I like to have higher end places so I can get higher end rents. Then I had people asking about Section 8, and there's nothing wrong. You can make a ton of money with Section 8. It's just that's not my niche. And so I said, somebody moved my cheese. I got to switch up my business model. And so I'm kind of more just first ring suburbs now. So I've got a duplex in Richfield, South St. Paul, Fridley, Coon Rapids. So just kind of like, stuff like that. And so I personally love multifamily real estate. I don't mind older properties because if I fix up the inside, the outside, you can't do a whole lot. Couple of my duplexes, 1901, 1904, whatever. My maintenance costs are higher, but like I think it was my first duplex that I bought, $1,200 payment. I rent the upstairs for $1,200. So I'm like, okay, if I just rent one unit, I'm breaking even. And then the downstairs I was renting for $1,500, and I had a hoarder. She moved out. I had to totally gut the thing, but now I'm getting $2,000 a month in rent. So I'm cash flowing $2,000 a month on that. And so I think it can be very case by case basis, but I love multifamily real estate. And this is one thing I talk about, the secret sauce and invest like a boss, but I always look at, okay, what are they currently getting in rents, but what is the market rent? Because I think there's a lot of investors who look at a property and they say, this one's only getting $700 a month. And I bought one in South St. Paul like this. It was all 1 bed, 1 bath units. They were just getting $700 a month. It was on the market for like $400,000. And every investor is looking at it like, you don't make any money on that. Well, once I looked at, okay, market rents for 1 bed, 1 bath in that area are $1,100. Okay, these guys have been a mom and pop landlord for forever. Here's the thing. Every tenant knows they're significantly under market rent. They know that. Everybody knows that. And so when I bought it, I just said, hey guys, you're seriously under market rent. Market is $1,100. I show them, hey, here's another property that is exactly the same as yours, renting for $1,100. Hey, I know you guys have been here for forever. Would you mind, I'm going to increase you to $950. Well, I'm getting a lot more. Okay. Yeah. And I still look like the hero to the tenant because the tenant's like, you're not kicking me out to totally market rent and whatnot. And so that's, I would say, where I'm finding my deals now is I'm looking at the market rent, looking what it's currently getting, and then finding a spread. And then, I'm all about having empathy as a landlord. There are some people who take advantage of that, but have empathy as a landlord, and most of the time tenants will treat you right for the most part, 95% of the time.
Mm-hmm. So basically your question was, hey, how quickly can you turn a profit, correct?
Well, and what's your opinion on that, right? Because a lot of people, we've heard various opinions, and like there was one gentleman and he said about between 15 to 20 years he started really making money.
I think you have to start out by defining what's your end game, because everyone has a very different strategy. Ben loves getting the best, highest cash on cash return, and that's where investing in the Midwest is amazing. I like a decent cash on cash return, but I also am looking for some solid appreciation. And so that's where you're going to just make out like abandoned in Florida, because even just case in point, I bought a property on the Atlantic side, and I bought it just December of this last year. And the seller's agent texted me a couple weeks ago, so barely 6 months later, and she said, hey, Steph, this person wants to buy that property for $175,000 more. And it's like, that doesn't happen in the Midwest. So for me, it's like, yes, I love the cash on cash return, but you really have to figure out what do you want your portfolio to look like? Mm-hmm. And I think you can totally for sure don't go in the hole. Maybe there's reasons why you're going to do that, but at the end of the day, I would say figure out what your end game is, and you can start turning a profit right away. Obviously, those dividends are just going to multiply as you continue on, but yeah, set yourself up for success and really figure out like what your vision is, and then partner up with someone that can really take you from where you are right now to where you ultimately want to go.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Find out, what do you want? Are you all about cash flow?
Yep.
Okay, let's find an investment property that cash flows super well. I got to a point, I'm now at a point where I'm a really good producer in real estate. So I'm a high income individual. I'll share this story. So my first good money making year in real estate, and I don't share these numbers, I'm a numbers person, and so that, numbers don't it's not a big deal to me. I do understand some people get uncomfortable. Oh, sharing numbers, whatever. So I don't do this to brag. I'm just a numbers person. So my first good money making year in real estate was my third year in real estate. I made tons of money, but once it came tax time, I had to pay $53,000 in taxes, and I'm like, oh, this sucks. Yeah. I made great money, but writing a physical check to the federal government for $53,000, I'm like, there's still potholes on the road. Why is there? I just wrote a check for $53,000. Yeah. Oh, totally. And so I told myself, I'm going to do everything in my power to legally bring that down. Not illegally, legally bring that down. So that next year I bought 2 investment properties, and then you do some cost segregation studies. You get an accountant who actually knows real estate investing, because that's huge. My income doubled that year. So me being a numbers guy, I'm like, I'm paying $100,000 in taxes. I'm freaking out when it comes to tax time. This year I actually had it set aside, so I was good and everything like that. But once I bought those 2 investment properties, my accountant said, Ben, I did everything I could. I brought your tax liability down to $26,000. And I was like, my accountant's name is Ben. I'm like, Ben, I could kiss you right now. Yes. I'm so pumped.
Oh my God.
And so I look at real estate now as, hey, the cash flow is nice. Don't get me wrong, cash flow is nice. But it's the tax benefits that it provides to me that, to me, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm making $1,200 a month, $2,000 a month on individual properties, but I get to keep an additional 75% of whatever my tax bill was in my pocket. So that's what's valuable to me.
There's so many reasons.
Yeah. So again, it kind of comes down to, I work with high net worth individuals who are like, I'm just looking to bring down taxes. Well, in that case, it might make sense to buy something that doesn't cash flow. Maybe it's a break even property, but if it's a good price point and you can write off, year one, if you buy $1 million property, do a cost segregation study, you can take $300,000 away of tax liability, basically. So if it's a high net worth individual, hey, I made $300,000 this year, you buy that $1 million property and you just wiped out $300,000, he's not paying any taxes. And so just little things like that, where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm fine breaking even because I get to keep an additional $300,000 in my pocket.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
and that's why it's good to work with a real estate agent that actually understands this stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
seriously, because I don't think people really get it.
Totally.
And you can explain it in a way they understand.
Absolutely.
That's why they need to go to the class.
I know.
We do break it down
you guys.
literally.
It's
step by step.
incredible, eye-opening. I love it.
Well, where can people find you individually, but also where can people find to go to the class? We'll put it all in our show notes, but
Absolutely. So if you go to, Ben, you can share your Instagram handle as well. I am ladyboss_SP. If you send me a message and just say invest like a boss, I will send you the link, and then you can just jump right on. It'll register you and you'll be good to go. And if you guys have any other questions regarding real estate, like the 101 or where to start, Ben and I get so fired up about helping people in the investing game. It's like a huge passion of both of ours. So
Totally.
reach out.
I go to parties and start talking about real estate, and I tell people, guys, I would literally talk about this all day. We don't have to talk about this.
If you don't shut him down, you
Pretty much.
keep on
Pretty
talking.
much.
And most people are like, oh no, I like talking about it.
interesting.
But then there's some people who are like, okay, let's change the subject. All right, that's fine. I'm cool with that. No, my Instagram is probably the best for me, Ben Peters 23. I loved Michael Jordan's number, so I've always been Ben Peters
my
23. Otherwise, I have a website, benpeters.us, and I have links to Invest Like a Boss. I've got some courses, all that kind of stuff.
And actually, the course is on our website as well. It's thebosslife.tv. So if you go to thebosslife.tv, you can send us a message there. You can send a message to Ben on his handle or his website, and any of those places.
That's
Perfect.
awesome.
Well, thank you guys so much. I learned so much, and I can't wait for our listeners to
Oh,
hear.
I know.
so fun to
I could talk all day. Really,
I love
It was
it.
so
I
great.
love it. Thanks,
Totally.
guys.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah. Thank you.